Hello and welcome to Best English Podcast. My name is Sophia, and it is so wonderful to have you here with me today. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Picture a bridge. A long bridge stretching across a wide river. On one side where you are standing now is the English you know. You can read it, you can understand it when people speak slowly, but you feel stuck. On the other side of the river is fluency. It's the ability to speak easily, to express your ideas, your jokes, your feelings, without searching for words, without that frustrating pause. Today, we are not just going to talk about that bridge, we are going to build it piece by piece together. This episode is your guide on how to speak English fluently. How to truly master the art of speaking. This isn't about magic tricks or secret formulas. It's about a journey, a real human journey filled with small steps, big victories, and the simple, powerful truth of how we learn to communicate. So find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let's begin our journey across that bridge. Let me tell you a story about a man named Leo. Leo worked as a software developer in his home country. He was brilliant at his job, truly a master of coding. His company had an amazing opportunity, a chance to work for a year at their main office in Chicago. It was his dream. The only problem was English. Leo's English was, in his own words, textbook English. He had studied it for years in school. He could read technical documents with no problem. He could write emails that were clear and correct. But speaking was a different world. The thought of a meeting, a phone call, or even just ordering a coffee in Chicago filled him with a cold sense of dread. This dread wasn't just a vague feeling. It was born from a specific, painful memory. A few months before the opportunity was announced, his team had a video call with the senior managers in Chicago. His own manager had told him, "Leo, they might ask about the new feature you developed, so be ready." For a week, Leo panicked. He wrote down everything he might say. He practiced his sentences in front of a mirror. But when the moment came and the manager in Chicago, a friendly-looking man named Mr. Harris, turned to him and said, "Leo, great work on that feature. Can you walk us through your process?" Leo's mind went completely white. It was as if every English word he had ever learned had evaporated. He opened his mouth, but only a small stammering sound came out. He could hear the echo of his own frantic thoughts. Say something. Anything. But there was nothing. After a horribly long silence, his local manager jumped in and answered for him. Leo spent the rest of the meeting with his camera off, feeling a sense of shame so deep it felt like a physical weight. That memory was the source of his fear. He believed that to be fluent, he needed to be perfect, to never feel that way again. He thought fluency meant having a perfect American accent, never making a single grammar mistake, and knowing every word in the dictionary. This idea of perfection was a huge, heavy wall between him and his dream. He would practice in his room at night, repeating phrases from a book. "Hello, how are you today?" "I am fine, thank you." The words felt unnatural, like clothes that didn't fit. When he tried to have a practice conversation online, his mind would go blank, haunted by the memory of that disastrous video call. The words he knew so well when reading would just disappear. After a few failed attempts, he started to believe a very dangerous story. The story was, "I am just not good at languages." Wow, maybe you have told yourself a similar story. It's a very common feeling. We see others speaking so easily, and we compare our beginning to their middle. We see our mistakes as failures, not as signposts. Leo's problem wasn't his intelligence or his ability to learn. His problem was his definition of fluency. He was chasing an impossible standard of perfection. True fluency is not about being perfect. Let me say that again, because it is the most important first step on this journey. Fluency is not about perfection. Fluency is about connection. It's about being able to share what's in your heart and mind with another person. It's about being understood. Think about your native language. Do you speak it perfectly all the time? Do you sometimes forget a word? Do you stumble over a sentence if you're tired or nervous? Of course you do. We all do. Fluency means being able to navigate a conversation, to express a complex idea even if you have to use simple words to do it. It means being able to laugh at a joke, and more importantly, being able to make someone else laugh. An accent is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of bravery. It's proof that you know more than one language. So, the very first step in our journey today is to change our mindset. We need to tear down that wall of perfection that Leo built. I want you to take a moment right now and ask yourself, what does fluency mean to me? Really? Don't think about your teacher's definition or a textbook's definition. What is your personal goal? Maybe it's being able to have a 15-minute conversation with a native speaker about your favorite hobby. Maybe it's being able to travel and confidently ask for directions or order food. Maybe it's being able to participate in a work meeting and share one or two important ideas. These goals are real, they are achievable, and they are what fluency is all about. They are the first stones we lay to build our bridge. Leo's journey truly began not when he learned a new grammar rule, but when he changed his goal from "I must speak perfect English" to "I want to connect with my colleagues in Chicago." That simple shift changed everything. It made the journey less scary and much more exciting. With his new mindset, Leo started to think differently about how to learn. Before, he was focused on studying, memorizing lists of vocabulary, doing grammar exercises over and over. This is what we call active learning, and it has its place. But it's only one part of the picture. He was missing the most fundamental, most natural part of language acquisition: listening. He had a conversation with a friend who had successfully learned German. His friend didn't give him a book. He gave him some advice that felt strange. He said, "Stop studying so much and start listening. A lot." Leo was skeptical. How could listening help him speak? It felt too passive, too easy. But he was desperate, so he decided to try. He started small. He found a podcast for English learners that talked about interesting stories. At first, it was difficult. He would catch a word here, a phrase there. His mind would wander. He would get frustrated because he couldn't understand every single word. This is a critical moment for every learner. It's the point where many people give up. They think, "This is too hard. I don't understand." But Leo remembered his friend's advice. His friend had said, "Don't try to understand every word. Just try to understand the general idea. Get the gist of it. Feel the rhythm of the language. Listen to the music of it." So, Leo kept going. He listened to the podcast every day on his way to work. He wasn't testing himself. He wasn't pausing to look up every unknown word. He just listened. He distinctly remembered one episode about a man who traveled across Canada on a bicycle. At first, the words were just a stream of sounds, but he heard the word bicycle and mountains and rain repeatedly. He started to form a picture in his mind. Then, he heard a full sentence that he understood perfectly. The journey was long, but it was beautiful. It was a simple sentence, but for Leo, it felt like a bolt of lightning. It was the first time an English sentence had entered his brain effortlessly, without translation. He felt a rush of excitement. He could do this. After about 2 weeks of this focused listening, something amazing started to happen. He began to notice patterns. He started to recognize common phrases. The host of the podcast would say things like, "At the end of the day," or "That's a great question." He heard how the pitch of her voice would go up at the end of a question and down at the end of a statement. He was absorbing the melody of English without even realizing it. He also started watching his favorite American TV shows. But this time, he did something different. He turned on the English subtitles, not the subtitles in his own language. This was a game changer. He could connect the words he was hearing with the words he was seeing. If he missed something, he could quickly read it. But mostly, he focused on listening. He was training his ear to the speed and flow of natural conversational English. What Leo was doing is what linguists call acquiring language through comprehensible input. It sounds complicated, but the idea is incredibly simple. It's the way we all learned our first language as children. Think about it. When you were a baby, did your parents give you grammar books? Did they make you memorize vocabulary lists? Of course not. They just talked to you. For months, even years, you just listened. You absorbed the sounds, the patterns, the rhythms. Your brain was like a sponge, soaking it all in. You were building a massive library of language in your mind before you ever spoke your first word. Learning a second language as an adult is not so different. We need to fill our brains with a language. We need to listen to thousands of hours of English that we can mostly understand. This is the foundation. You cannot build a house without materials, and you cannot speak a language that you haven't first listened to. Listening builds the mental map of the language in your brain. Speaking is simply reading that map out loud. So, here is your next practical step. Your mission for the next month is to become a super listener. I want you to find at least 30 minutes every single day to immerse yourself in English. The key is to find something you enjoy. If you love cooking, watch cooking shows in English. If you are passionate about history, listen to a history podcast. If you love pop music, find the lyrics to your favorite English songs and sing along. Make it fun. This should not feel like work. It should feel like entertainment. When you are listening, practice letting go of the need to understand everything. If you understand 70 to 80%, that is perfect. Your brain will learn to figure out the meaning of the other 20 to 30% from the context. This is an incredibly powerful skill. It's like being a detective, finding clues to solve the puzzle of meaning. Let's try a small exercise right now. I'm going to describe a scene. Don't worry about the individual words. Just try to create a picture in your mind. The sun was setting over the ocean, casting a warm, golden glow across the water. The waves were gently lapping against the shore, and the sound was so peaceful, so calming. A cool breeze was rustling through the palm trees along the beach. Can you see it? Can you feel it? You probably understood the main idea even if you didn't know every single word, like glow or rustling. That is, the power of listening for the gist. Leo continued his listening journey for several months. He felt a change inside him. The language no longer felt like a foreign enemy. It started to feel like a friend. He could understand jokes on TV shows. He could follow the news on the radio. The English in his head was becoming richer and more natural. But there was still one big problem. The bridge from listening to speaking felt broken. He had all this language inside him, but he couldn't get it out. When he tried to speak, he would still freeze. His mouth didn't seem to know how to make the right shapes for the English sounds. The grammar he understood perfectly when listening seemed to fall apart when he tried to construct his own sentences. This is the second great challenge for every learner, and it is a completely normal part of the process. He needed to activate the language he had passively learned. He needed to build the physical connection between his brain and his mouth. So he started with a technique called shadowing. It's simple but incredibly powerful. He would put on his headphones, play his favorite podcast, and he would try to speak at the exact same time as the host. He was like a shadow following the speaker's words. The first time he tried it, it was a mess. He was stumbling over words, mumbling. It sounded like nonsense, but he didn't give up. He started with just one sentence at a time. He would listen to the sentence, then pause the audio and try to repeat it exactly as he heard it. He focused on copying the rhythm, the intonation, the melody, not just the words. Let's try it together. I'll say a sentence, and I want you to repeat it out loud after me. Try to match my sound exactly. Ready? Wow! It's a beautiful day to learn English. Go ahead, say it. Let's try another one, a little faster. I've been looking forward to this all week. Your turn. One more. Pay attention to the way the words link together. What are you going to do this weekend? Notice how going to sounds like gonna. This is the kind of natural speech you learn through shadowing. Leo did this for 10 minutes every day. It felt like a workout for his mouth. He was training the muscles of his tongue and lips to produce English sounds. He was building muscle memory so that when he needed to speak, his mouth would already know what to do. It was no longer a conscious, difficult effort. It was becoming automatic. After he got comfortable with shadowing, he moved on to the next step, talking to himself. I know it might sound a bit strange, but it is one of the safest, most effective ways to practice speaking. There is no one there to judge you. There's no pressure. It's just you and the language. Leo started narrating his life. As he was making breakfast, he would say out loud, "Okay, now I am getting the eggs out of the fridge. I'm going to crack 2 eggs into the bowl. I need to add a little bit of salt and pepper." To make it more fun, he would sometimes pretend he was a TV personality. While cooking, he'd become a celebrity chef. Welcome back to Leo's kitchen. Today, we're making a magnificent omelet. First, you take 2 beautiful, farm-fresh eggs. This little game made the practice enjoyable and creative. When he was driving, he'd pretend to be a sports commentator describing the traffic. And the red car is trying to merge, but the blue van is blocking him, a very aggressive move by the blue van. The sentences were simple. The grammar wasn't always perfect, but that didn't matter. He was practicing the act of retrieving words from his brain and forming them into sentences. He was turning his passive vocabulary into active vocabulary. I want you to try this. Choose one activity you do every day. Maybe it's washing the dishes, or taking a shower, or walking to the bus stop. For the next week, your challenge is to describe that activity out loud in English every time you do it. Don't worry about mistakes. Don't worry if you have to pause to find a word. The goal is just to speak, to keep the flow of words going. Think of it like this. When you want to learn to swim, you can read all the books about swimming. You can watch videos of Olympic swimmers. But eventually, you have to get in the water. Speaking to yourself is your way of getting in the water in a safe, private swimming pool before you dive into the ocean of real conversation. It's the essential step that connects the world of understanding with the world of creating. After a few weeks of shadowing and talking to himself, Leo felt a new confidence growing inside him. The words were coming more easily. He could form sentences more quickly. He felt ready to take the biggest, scariest step of all, talking to another person. His dream of working in Chicago was getting closer, and he knew he had to face his fear. He remembered a website his friend had told him about, a language exchange platform where you can find partners to practice with. He created a profile, his heart pounding in his chest. Within a few hours, he got a message from a woman named Emily from Chicago. She was learning his native language and she wanted to practice. They scheduled a call for the following Saturday. The week leading up to the call was filled with anxiety. Leo almost canceled 3 times. All his old fears came back, whispering reminders of the humiliating video call. What if I don't understand her? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I freeze again? This is the voice of fear, and its only goal is to keep us safe in our comfort zone. But Leo knew that growth only happens outside our comfort zone. So on Saturday, he took a deep breath, sat down at his computer, and made the call. The first 5 minutes were exactly as terrible as he had imagined. His mind went blank, just like before. Emily asked him, "So what do you do for fun?" And Leo, who had a dozen hobbies, couldn't think of a single one. He just stammered, I like, things." He felt his face turn red with embarrassment. He was ready to hang up and never try again. But then, Emily did something amazing. She smiled kindly and said, "It's okay, take your time." My first time speaking your language, I accidentally told someone their cat was a potato. We all have to start somewhere. Her kindness was a lifeline. Leo took another breath and remembered his simple goal: connection, not perfection. He decided to talk about something simple, something he knew well. He started talking about his dog, Max. He said, "I have a dog. His name is Max. He is very big. He eats a lot." Oh, it was simple English. It wasn't elegant, but Emily understood. She laughed and said, "I have a big dog too." "What kind is he?" And just like that, they were having a conversation, a real conversation. They talked for 30 minutes. Leo made many mistakes. He used the wrong preposition. He forgot the apostrophe S on a verb. He had to ask Emily to repeat things several times. But by the end of the call, he was buzzing with excitement. He had done it. He had survived. More than that, he had connected. He had shared a piece of his life with someone, and she had understood. This is the magic moment. This is when language learning becomes real. It's not about the grammar rules or the test scores. It's about that spark of human connection. Finding a safe place to practice is crucial. This could be a language exchange partner like Emily. It could be a conversation club, an online tutor, or even just a friend who is also learning. The key is to find someone who is patient and encouraging. You need a space where you feel comfortable making mistakes. Because mistakes are not your enemy, they are your teachers. Each mistake you make shines a light on something you need to learn. If you use the wrong tense, it's not a failure, it's feedback. Your brain is saying, okay, let's work on this part of the map a little more. When you reframe mistakes as feedback, they lose their power to scare you. Leo continued to talk with Emily every week. Each conversation got a little easier. He started to use the phrases he had heard on his podcasts. He noticed the rhythm he had practiced with shadowing appearing in his own speech. His confidence grew with every successful conversation. He began to see himself not as a bad language learner, but simply as a language learner. He was a person on a journey, and he was making progress every day. He even started to make jokes in English. They weren't always funny, but the fact that he was trying was a huge victory. He was starting to express his personality, his true self, in this new language. Think about what you love to talk about in your own language. Is it movies, sports, technology, your family? The next step is to prepare yourself to talk about these topics in English. This isn't about memorizing a script. It's about giving yourself the tools you need to have a good conversation. Before his call with Emily, Leo would spend 10 minutes thinking about what they might talk about. If he knew they were going to talk about their weekend, he would look up a few key words. For example, he might look up hiking, barbecue, or exhibition. He wasn't memorizing sentences. He was just putting the tools in his toolbox. This little bit of preparation helped reduce his anxiety and allowed him to focus on the conversation itself rather than desperately searching for words. Here is your next mission. I want you to find one opportunity to speak English with another person this week. Just one. It can be very small. It could be ordering your coffee in English. It could be asking a tourist for the time. It could be finding a language partner online for a 10-minute chat. Before you do it, spend 5 minutes preparing. Think about what you might say. Look up 2 or 3 words you might need. The goal is not to have a perfect conversation. The goal is simply to start, to take one small step out of your comfort zone. Remember Leo's first call with Emily. It was difficult and embarrassing at first, but it was the most important step he took. It was the moment he truly started to build the final section of his bridge to fluency. Months passed. Leo's English was transformed. He was no longer just a listener, he was a participant. His conversations with Emily became the highlight of his week. They talked about everything from work and culture to their dreams for the future. He was still making mistakes, of course, but they didn't bother him anymore. They were just part of the process. The time for his move to Chicago finally arrived. He was nervous, but it was a different kind of nervousness now. It was the excitement of a new adventure, not the fear of failure. On his first day at the Chicago office, he walked into a team meeting. A few years ago, this would have been his worst nightmare. He sat at the big conference table, and his manager started the meeting. Leo listened. He understood the discussion about the project goals and the new deadlines. Then, his manager turned to him and said, "Leo, you've done a lot of work on this component. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?" The whole room looked at him. For a split second, the old fear returned. His heart started to beat faster. But then, he remembered his journey. He remembered listening to podcasts on the bus. He remembered shadowing in his room. He remembered talking to himself in the car. He remembered his first clumsy but wonderful conversation with Emily. He took a breath, and he spoke. He explained his idea for improving the code. He used simple words. He paused once to find the right phrase. His accent was clearly not American, but his message was clear. His colleagues listened, they nodded. Someone asked a clarifying question. Leo answered it. When he finished speaking, his manager smiled and said, "That's a great point, Leo. Let's explore that idea." In that moment, Leo wasn't just a software developer. He was a communicator. He had crossed the bridge. He was fluent. Not because he was perfect, but because he could connect. He could share his ideas and be understood. His dream had become his reality. Leo's story is powerful because it shows us the path. It lays out the essential steps that take us from being a passive student of English to an active, confident speaker. His journey from fear to fluency is a map that you can follow. But every traveler's journey is unique. Leo built the main highway, but there are other beautiful roads, helpful shortcuts, and scenic viewpoints to explore along the way. His story showed us how to build the bridge across the river. Now, let's talk about how to make that bridge stronger, wider, and how to cross it with more speed and joy. Let's explore the deeper levels of fluency, the ones that take you from just speaking the language to truly making it your own. To do this, let me introduce you to another person. Her name is Isabella. Isabella was a dedicated listener of our podcast, and she had followed Leo's story very carefully. She had built a consistent habit of listening to English every day. She practiced shadowing with podcast episodes until the rhythm of the language felt natural to her. She even got over her fear of speaking and found a wonderful language exchange partner from Ireland named Olivia. On the surface, Isabella was doing everything right. She could have conversations. She could communicate her ideas, but she felt slow. She described it as a constant buffering in her mind, like a video that keeps pausing to load. Let me paint a picture for you of what one of Isabella's conversations was like from inside her head. Olivia, her partner, would say something like, "So we had a crazy storm last night. The wind was howling like crazy." Isabella understood every word, but then the machine in her head started working. Her first thought in her native Italian was, "Oh, we had a storm last week too. It was very strong and knocked over a tree on my street." Now, the translation began. Okay, we had is we had. A storm is a storm. Last week is last week. Good. It was very strong. It was very strong. And knocked over. What is knocked over? Sbattuto? Rovesciato? Hraut, she searches for the word. Fell down? Made fall? Knocked down sounds right. A tree is a tree. On my street is on my street. Now she assembles the sentence, checking the grammar. We had a storm last week. It was very strong and it knocked down a tree on my street. By the time she was ready to say this, Olivia had already moved on, talking about something else. The moment was lost. Isabella just nodded and said, "Oh, wow!" This was her constant frustration. The biggest wall standing between Isabella and true fluency was the wall of translation. Many learners believe that translation is a necessary step. At the very beginning, it can be helpful. But to become truly fluent, you must learn to break this habit. Constantly translating in your head is like trying to swim with a heavy backpack on. You can do it, but it takes an enormous amount of energy, and you'll never be able to move gracefully or quickly. The goal is to take off the backpack. The goal is to learn how to think directly in English. This might sound like a magical, impossible skill reserved for advanced speakers, but it's not. It's a habit, and like any habit, it can be built with small, simple, and consistent practice. You don't just wake up one day thinking in English. You build up to it, level by level. Let's start with level 1, the simplest and most important level, labeling your world. Right now, as you're listening to my voice, just look around you. What do you see? Maybe you see a window, a table, a cup, a book, a pen. For the next week, I want you to make a conscious effort to label the objects in your environment in English, but only in your mind. As you walk into your kitchen, don't think of the Italian or French or Japanese word for refrigerator. Just think the English word, refrigerator. As you pick up your phone, think phone. As you sit on a chair, think chair. This is a silent internal game you can play all day long. In the car, you can think tree, road, building, sky. At first, you will have to do it consciously. It will feel like an exercise. But after a few days of consistent practice, something amazing will happen. You will start to do it automatically. You will see a dog walking down the street, and the word dog will pop into your head before your native word does. This is the first step to breaking the translation habit. You are creating a direct link between an object in the world and its English name with no middleman, no translation. Once you are comfortable with single words, it's time for level 2, narrating your life in simple sentences. This is very similar to the talking to yourself exercise we discussed with Leo, but you can start by doing it silently in your head. When you wake up in the morning, your internal monologue can be, I am awake now, I am tired, I need to get out of bed. As you brush your teeth, you can think, I am brushing my teeth. I need to do this for 2 minutes. This toothpaste is minty. Again, the sentences should be very simple. We are not trying to write a beautiful novel. We are building a new habit. We are creating a space in our minds where English lives. Isabella started doing this. At first, it was hard. Her brain felt tired from the effort. It desperately wanted to switch back to the comfort of Italian. But she was patient with herself. She started with just 5 minutes a day. She called it her English bubble time. For 5 minutes while she made her morning coffee, she would try to have her internal monologue only in English. I'm getting the coffee. I need a filter. I am pouring the water. Those 5 minutes soon became 10. Then she started doing it on her walk to work. Slowly but surely, the English pathways in her brain grew stronger. This leads us to level 3, making simple decisions in English. Every day, we make hundreds of small decisions. These are perfect opportunities to practice thinking in English. When you open your closet in the morning, instead of thinking in your native language, try to have the debate in English. What should I wear today? It looks cold outside. I think I will wear the blue sweater. Yes, and the gray trousers. When you look at a menu in a restaurant, have the conversation in your head. What should I get? The pasta looks delicious, but the fish sounds healthier. I think I'll have the fish today. By using English for this internal process of weighing options, you are taking it to a much deeper level. You are not just describing what you see, you're using the language to reason, to plan, and to choose. This is a huge step towards genuine fluency. Isabella practiced these 3 levels diligently. She labeled her world, she narrated her actions, and she started making small decisions in English. One afternoon, about a month into this new practice, she was walking home from work, and she felt a drop of rain on her arm. Without any conscious effort, the thought that appeared in her mind was, "Oh, it's starting to rain. I hope I have my umbrella." She stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. She was shocked. The thought wasn't in Italian first. It just appeared in English. It was a completely natural, spontaneous thought. For the first time, English didn't feel like a foreign language she was studying. It felt like one of her languages. It was a breakthrough moment, a sign that the wall of translation was finally beginning to crumble. This is the goal. It doesn't happen overnight, but with consistent mindful practice, you can and you will begin to think directly in English. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to create your own English bubble. Start with just 5 minutes a day. Choose a time when you are alone and can concentrate. It could be when you're in the shower, washing the dishes, or walking your dog. During this time, commit to thinking only in English. Start with level 1, labeling what you see. When that feels easy, move to level 2, narrating in simple sentences. And when you're ready, try level 3, making a small decision. Don't be discouraged if your native language intrudes. Just gently guide your thoughts back to English. This is a meditation. It is a practice. And it is one of the most powerful things you can do to accelerate your journey to fluency. As Isabella became more comfortable thinking in English, her conversations with her language partner, Olivia, started to change. The long, awkward pauses became shorter. The flow of the conversation was smoother. But she noticed a new problem. She felt like she was using the same words over and over again. Good. Nice. Interesting. She knew thousands of English words from her studies, but in the moment of a real conversation, she could only seem to remember the most basic ones. She wanted to be more expressive. She wanted her English to have more color, more personality. So, she decided to focus on expanding her active vocabulary. She downloaded a popular vocabulary-building app and started memorizing lists of new words. She learned words like magnificent, serene, and ambiguous. But when she tried to use them in her conversations with Olivia, they sounded strange and unnatural. She would say something like, "The weather today is magnificent." And Olivia would laugh and say, "You sound like you're from a Shakespeare play. We probably just say, 'It's gorgeous out.'" Isabella was confused. She was learning the right words, but she was using them in the wrong way. Her problem was that she was learning words in isolation. A single word is like a single musical note. To make music, you need to learn how notes are combined to create chords and melodies. In language, these combinations are called chunks or collocations. Learning in chunks is perhaps the single most important strategy for sounding natural and fluent in English. Native speakers don't think in individual words. Our brains are hardwired to think in phrases, in groups of words that often go together. For example, if I say make, you might think a mistake. If I say take, you might think a break. We don't say do a mistake or do a break. We don't just do homework. We also do the dishes or do business. Learning these chunks is the secret to sounding less like a textbook and more like a real person. So, how do you learn these chunks? The first step is to become a noticer. When you are listening to podcasts like this one, or watching a movie, or reading a book, start paying active attention to the words that cluster together. Don't just look for new individual words. Look for interesting phrases. Keep a dedicated notebook, what I call a chunk book. And also, when you hear a phrase that sounds natural and useful, pause and write it down. For example, you might hear a character in a movie say, "To be honest, I'm not really a fan of horror movies." The chunk here is "to be honest." It's a fantastic phrase for giving your opinion. Another useful chunk is, "I'm not really a fan of." It's so much more natural than saying, "I do not like." Isabella started her own chunk book. She would write down phrases she heard Olivia use, like, "I'm looking forward to the weekend," or "I can't make it on Friday," or "That sounds like a plan." She even started organizing her book into categories, like greetings, expressing opinions, and telling stories. This made it easier to find the right phrase when she needed it. These weren't fancy, difficult words, but they were the real building blocks of everyday conversation. The second step is to learn new vocabulary in context. This is why learning from lists and dictionary apps can be misleading. A word's meaning is shaped by the words around it. From now on, whenever you learn a new word, don't just write down the word and its translation. Write down the entire sentence in which you found it. Let's say you're reading an article and you see the word essential. The sentence is, "Getting enough sleep is essential for good health." Writing down the whole sentence is so much more powerful than just writing essential equals very important. The sentence teaches you the grammar. It teaches you that essential is often followed by for. It gives you a model that you can use to create your own sentences. After you've written down the model sentence, your next task is to make it your own. Create 3 new sentences using the new word or chunk. These sentences should be true for you. They should be personal. This connection to your own life makes the word much more memorable. So, using the chunk essential for, Isabella might write, 1. Practicing English every day is essential for my fluency. 2. My morning coffee is essential for a good start to my day. 3. Having good friends is essential for my happiness. Now, that word belongs to her. She hasn't just memorized it, she has integrated it into her own life. Another fun and powerful technique is to connect new words in a story. Our brains are not designed to remember random, disconnected pieces of information, but we are incredibly good at remembering stories. Let's say you learn 3 new words this week: achieve, overcome, and rewarding. You could try to memorize them one by one, or you could weave them into a tiny story. It was difficult to learn English, but I was determined to achieve my goal. I had to overcome my fear of speaking. In the end, it was the most rewarding experience of my life. This little story connects the words, gives them meaning, and makes them almost impossible to forget. Isabella transformed her learning process. She stopped memorizing lists. Instead, she became a collector of phrases. Her chunk book became her most valuable tool. Before her calls with Olivia, she would review her book and choose 1 or 2 new phrases she wanted to try to use in the conversation. At first, it felt a little forced, but soon, these phrases started to come out naturally. Instead of saying, "I think it is a good idea," she would find herself saying, That sounds like a great idea. Instead of, I am tired, she might say, I'm completely wiped out. Her English started to have more texture, more flavor. Olivia noticed the change immediately. Isabella, she said one day, your English is sounding so natural lately. You sound just like my friends here. This was the best compliment Isabella could have ever received. It was proof that her new method was working. She wasn't just using English words anymore. She was speaking the English language. Your next mission is to start your own chunk book. Get a physical notebook or start a file on your computer. For the next week, your only goal is to find and collect 10 interesting chunks. You can find them anywhere, in songs, in movies, in podcasts, in articles. Write down the phrase and write down the sentence where you found it. Then, try to make one or two of your own sentences that are personal to you. Don't just be a student of words, become a collector of phrases. This shift in focus will have a profound impact on how natural and confident you sound. As Isabella's speaking skills grew, so did her confidence. But it wasn't a straight line to the top. There were good days and bad days. Some conversations with Olivia felt amazing, where the words flowed effortlessly. Others felt like a struggle, where she would stumble over her words and feel like she was back at the beginning. On these bad days, the old voice of doubt would creep back in. You're not good enough. You'll never be truly fluent. She realized that fluency wasn't just about skills and techniques. It was also about managing your own psychology. It was about learning to be resilient. This brings us to one of the most important concepts in any long-term learning journey, the confidence loop. It works like this. When you take a small action, like practicing speaking, and you have a small success, like having a good conversation, you get a little boost of positive feedback. That feedback increases your confidence. With more confidence, you are more willing to take a slightly bigger action, like speaking to a new person or trying to express a more complex idea. When that goes well, you get even more positive feedback, which boosts your confidence even more. It's a positive upward spiral. Action leads to confidence, and confidence leads to more action. The reverse is also true. If you are too afraid to take action, you never get any positive feedback. Your confidence stays low, which makes you even more afraid to take action. This is the loop of fear, and it's where many learners get stuck. The secret, then, is to force yourself to take that first small action, even when you don't feel confident. Your confidence doesn't come first. Your action comes first. You have to be brave for just 5 minutes. You have to start the conversation even when your heart is pounding. You have to start the upward spiral of the confidence loop. Isabella realized she needed a way to keep her loop going, especially on the days when she felt unmotivated. She knew she couldn't rely on her own feelings, which changed from day to day. She needed a system. She needed a community. Learning a language can sometimes feel like a very lonely journey. You spend hours listening to podcasts by yourself, practicing in your room by yourself. It's easy to feel like you're the only one in the world who is struggling with this. But the truth is, there are millions of people on the exact same journey. And connecting with them can be the fuel that keeps your engine running when your own motivation is low. Finding a community is a game changer. For Isabella, it started with Olivia. Olivia wasn't just a language partner, she became a friend. She was someone who understood Isabella's goals and celebrated her progress. But Isabella wanted more. She joined an online forum for English learners. She started by just reading other people's posts. She saw people sharing the same frustrations she felt. She saw them asking the same questions she had. She immediately felt less alone. After a week of just reading, she decided to write her first post. She shared the story of her breakthrough moment when she first thought a sentence in English without translating. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of people from all over the world replied, saying, "That's so inspiring," and "I can't wait for that to happen to me," and "Congratulations." That wave of positive feedback was a huge boost to her confidence loop. She also discovered that one of the best ways to build her own confidence was to help others. Newer learners would post questions about grammar or vocabulary, and Isabella found that she could often answer them. In the process of explaining a concept to someone else, she deepened her own understanding of it. Teaching is one of the most powerful forms of learning. It forces you to organize your thoughts and clarify your knowledge. One day, a new member posted a message saying, "I'm so frustrated. I feel like I'm not making any progress." Isabella felt a strong connection to this person. She replied with her own story, sharing how she used to feel the exact same way. She gave him tips on listening and finding a language partner. A few days later, the man replied, "Thank you so much. Your story gave me the motivation to keep trying." Helping him made Isabella realize just how far she had come. She wasn't just a learner anymore. She was a mentor. She became an active, valued member of this online community. It was her tribe. On days when she had a bad conversation and felt her confidence dip, she would go to the forum. She would either read an inspiring story or help someone else with a problem. It was her system for getting her motivation back. It was her lifeline. Your final mission for this part of our journey is to find your community. It doesn't have to be big. It can start with just one person. If you don't have a language partner, make it your goal this week to find one. If you already have one, think about how you can deepen that connection. Maybe you can share your goals and ask them to help you stay accountable. Then, look for a wider community. Search on social media for groups of English learners. Find a forum, read the posts, see the shared struggles and successes. And when you feel ready, contribute. Ask a question, share a small victory. Encourage someone else. Don't try to walk this path alone. We are social creatures. We thrive on connection and shared purpose. Your community will be there to celebrate with you on your good days and to lift you up on your bad days. Now we arrive at the final, most exciting stage of the journey. We've seen Leo build the bridge and gain the technical skill to communicate. We've followed Isabella as she learned to cross that bridge with natural speed and confidence. But what's on the other side? It's more than just communication. It's about expression. It's the stage where you stop being a visitor in the English language and you start to live there. This is the part where you find your own unique voice and learn to play with the language. This is where English becomes truly yours. Isabella continued her journey. She was now a confident speaker. She could discuss complex topics at work. She could chat easily with Olivia and other friends. But she felt there was still something missing. In Italian, she was known for being witty and funny. She loved making her friends laugh. In English, she was clear, she was correct, but she wasn't funny. She wasn't fully herself. She posed this challenge to Olivia one day. "How can I learn to be funny in English? It feels impossible." Olivia smiled. "It's not impossible. It's just the final level of the game. It's about understanding culture and learning to play with words." So Isabella began a new kind of study. She started watching classic American and British sitcoms like Friends and The Office, but she watched them like a detective. When the audience laughed, she would pause. She would replay the scene. She'd ask herself, "Why was that funny?" Sometimes the humor was in the situation, the physical comedy, but often it was in the language itself. It was sarcasm, irony, or a clever play on words, a pun. She started a new section in her chunk book, a section for humor. She would write down funny lines and, more importantly, the context. She learned that a phrase like, "Yeah, right," could mean, "I agree," or the exact opposite, "I don't believe you at all," depending entirely on the tone of voice. This was a revelation. Humor was not just about words, it was about performance. Her first few attempts to make jokes were not great. She tried to repeat a complex joke she heard in a comedy special, but she got the timing wrong and the punchline fell flat. Olivia was kind about it, explaining the cultural reference she was missing. It was a frustrating moment, but Isabella remembered the most important rule: connection, not perfection. She didn't give up. Instead, she started smaller. She focused on gentle, observational humor. One day, while on a video call with Olivia, Isabella's cat suddenly jumped onto her desk and walked right in front of the camera. Instead of just apologizing, Isabella said, without thinking, "I'm sorry, this is my new manager. He is very demanding." Olivia burst out laughing. It wasn't a pre-planned joke. It was spontaneous. It was simple. And it was genuinely funny because it was real. In that moment of shared laughter, Isabella felt a profound sense of achievement. She wasn't just speaking English. She was creating a moment of joy with it. She was being herself. This leads to the next step in finding your voice, learning to express nuanced opinions and complex emotions. In the beginning, we learn the basics. I like, I don't like, I am happy, I am sad. But life is much more complex than that. True connection comes from sharing our deeper, more complicated feelings. Isabella started to notice how native speakers expressed these subtleties. They didn't just disagree, they would soften their language. They'd use chunks like, "I see your point, but I have a slightly different take on it," or "I'm not sure I entirely agree with that." These phrases were like tools for navigating a conversation politely and intelligently. She began to practice this. During her conversations with Olivia, they started talking about books and movies. Previously, Isabella might have said, "I did not like the movie." Now she tried to be more specific and nuanced. After watching a new film, she told Olivia, "To be honest, I had mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I thought the cinematography was spectacular, but on the other hand, the plot felt a bit underdeveloped." This simple change completely transformed their conversation. It went from a simple statement of fact to an invitation for a deeper discussion. Olivia could now ask, "Oh, that's interesting. What did you find underdeveloped about it?" Isabella was now using English not just to state her opinion, but to explore it. She also expanded her emotional vocabulary. She learned the difference between being annoyed, frustrated, and furious. She learned that being content was different from being ecstatic. Each new word was a new color she could use to paint a more accurate picture of her inner world. The final piece of this advanced stage is mastering the art of storytelling. We are all storytellers. We tell stories every day about what happened at work, about a funny thing our child said, about a frustrating experience at the supermarket. Being able to tell a good story is one of the most powerful communication skills you can have. It's how we engage people, share our experiences, and make our ideas memorable. Isabella realized that at her job, the most respected colleagues were not just the ones with the best ideas, but the ones who could present those ideas in a compelling way. They told a story. She learned a simple but incredibly effective structure for storytelling, often used in business, called the STAR method. S for situation, give the context. T for task. What was the goal? A for action, what did you do? R for result, what happened in the end? This structure provided a clear, logical flow for any story. One week, Isabella had to explain to her team how she fixed a difficult bug in the software. Instead of just listing the technical steps, she used the STAR method. She began, "So the situation was that our users in Germany were experiencing a major crash every time they tried to use the new feature S. My task was to find the root cause and fix it before the end of the week, T. The action I took was to analyze the crash reports, which led me to a specific line of code that was conflicting with German keyboard layouts. I then rewrote that part of the code, A. The result is that since I deployed the fix yesterday, there have been 0 crashes reported from our German users. R. By framing it as a story, her explanation was clear, engaging, and memorable. Her manager was incredibly impressed. She had used English to demonstrate her competence and value to the team. To take her storytelling even further, Isabella learned about adding sensory details. Olivia explained it to her. A good story doesn't just tell us what happened, it shows us. It makes us feel like we are there. She challenged Isabella to tell her about her weekend trip to the beach, but to include at least one thing she saw, one thing she heard, and one thing she felt. Isabella's first attempt was simple. I went to the beach. It was nice. Olivia gently prompted her. Okay, but what did you see? What did you hear? Isabella tried again. Okay, I went to the beach. I saw the huge blue waves crashing onto the white sand. I heard the seagulls calling over my head, and I felt the warm sun on my skin. Suddenly, the simple story came to life. It was a small change, but it made a huge difference. She was no longer just reporting facts. She was creating an experience for the listener. Your final practice mission is to play. Choose one of these 3 areas to focus on this week. If you want to work on humor, watch a 10-minute clip of a sitcom and try to understand one joke. Then, try to explain why it was funny to your language partner or just to yourself. If you want to practice nuanced opinions, find an article about a topic you find interesting. Write down 3 sentences expressing your opinion, but try to use phrases like, from my perspective, or I'm on the fence about, or I'm inclined to believe that. Finally, if you want to practice storytelling, think of something simple that happened to you this week. Try to tell the story to yourself, but make sure to include one thing you saw, one thing you heard, and one thing you felt. The goal here is not to be perfect. The goal is to experiment, to play, to take the wonderful English language you have learned and start to make it your own. So, we have followed the journeys of Leo and Isabella. Leo taught us the fundamental path. Change your mindset from perfection to connection, build a foundation of listening, activate your speaking muscles through shadowing and self-talk, and have the courage to start real conversations. Isabella taught us the next level, how to break the translation habit by learning to think in English, how to sound more natural by learning vocabulary in chunks, not just single words, and how to stay motivated for the long term by building your confidence loop and finding your community. And finally, we've seen how Isabella stepped into the final stage of her journey, learning to express her unique personality through humor, nuanced opinions, and storytelling. Each of their stories is a piece of the puzzle. Together, they form a complete picture of the journey to fluency. It is not a short journey, and it is not always easy. It requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. But it is one of the most rewarding journeys you can take. To be able to connect with people from different cultures, to understand their stories, and to share your own. This is a kind of magic. It makes your world bigger. Your voice is important. You have unique ideas, stories, and experiences to share. English is not just a subject to be studied, it is a tool. It's a key that can unlock doors to new friendships, new opportunities, and new ways of understanding the world. Don't let the fear of making mistakes keep you silent. The world needs to hear what you have to say. Embrace the journey. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate your small victories. Laugh at your mistakes. And never, ever forget that the ultimate goal is simple and beautiful: to connect with another human being. You have the ability to do this. You have the map. You have the steps. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And you've already taken that first step just by listening to this podcast today. You are already on your way. So keep going, keep listening, keep practicing, and keep speaking. If this story and these ideas have helped you today, please don't keep it to yourself. There are millions of other people just like you on this same journey. Share this episode with a friend who is also working to improve their English and to make sure you never miss our weekly stories and tips. To continue building your bridge to fluency with me, hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever podcast app you are using right now. And please, turn on the notifications. That small click will ensure that you are the first to know when a new episode is ready to help you move one step closer to your goal. This is Sophia from Best English Podcast. Thank you so much for your time and your attention today. It was a pleasure to be with you. Now go out there and let the world hear your voice. Keep speaking.